Hello, my friend. On today's episode, I have Liza Duddy, who is the owner and founder of Duddy Performance in Massachusetts. She's a Unicorn Society member who has been absolutely crushing it lately. She had over 60% revenue growth year over the last year and is continuing on that trend as we speak. And so we break down kind of the top 5 things she's been doing that have really contributed to this massive revenue growth she's been seeing. So get your notepads ready. She covers so many great topics and gives so many actionable tips. So if you want amazing revenue growth like Liza, keep on listening, my friend. Hello, fitness business nerds. Welcome to another episode of the Business Funicorns podcast. I'm very excited for today's episode, but before I dive in, just want to give you a quick reminder that if you're interested in learning more about Business Funicorns in any way, shape, or form, we do a fantastic thing called a brainstorm call, which just means you're going to have a call with someone from our team, and we will walk you through some really important high-level questions and frameworks for how to think about your gym. And if we can be helpful in any of the things we learn on that call, we'll let you know how we can be helpful. If not, it's a really valuable 15-minute call where we'll just help you think more strategically about how to grow your gym. So if you want to sign up for this free, no strings attached brainstorm call, click the link in the show notes, follow the instructions, and we hope to talk to you soon. Which brings me to today's episode, which is, I'm very excited about, first time on the podcast, owner of Duddy Performance, Unicorn Society member extraordinaire. It's Liza Duddy. Welcome to the podcast, Liza.
Thank you, Michael. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on this podcast. You've been crushing it so much at your gym lately. And whenever we have a Unicorn Society member like you that's just friggin' nailing it, we'd love to have you on the podcast and let you share all your wisdom, all your lessons learned. And so thank you for doing this. Before we go in and share all the great work you've been doing, maybe just tell people a little bit about Duddy Performance. Where are you? Who do you serve? How do you serve them?
Sure. So we're in Sudbury, Massachusetts. We're just west of Boston. We do mostly personal training, but since joining BFU, we have added small group training to our schedule. Mm-hmm. We work probably 70% with like general population adults, and then the other 30% is student athletes, middle school, high school, some college kids, some D1 kids. And we opened a brick and mortar in November of 21. Before that, I was personal training out of other gyms and then in COVID outside and blah, blah, blah. So we've been a brick and mortar since November of 2021.
Wow, that's amazing. And what a bumpy time just to open any business, any brick and mortar business, 2021. But you made it, girl. You're still doing it. I hate
to say it, but I was one of those people that COVID was really good for.
Yeah.
Because everybody wanted to train. People who, like, my athletes were home. Everyone wanted to train more.
Yeah.
I was really lucky I could do it safely from home. We did a lot of virtual stuff. So
that's amazing.
I was really fortunate.
Listen, good for you. I mean, for anyone who was able to make lemonade out of lemons, good for you. Nothing to be ashamed about. We all are trying to do our best during tough time. And listen, You crushed it. You're here. Not only you're here, but you've been thriving. Just to give people some sense of what you've been up to, you had a 60% overall gross revenue increase from 2023 to 2024. And you just mentioned now you're on track to kind of keep that going. 60% more revenue from just in a 12-month period is huge. So what I want to do on this podcast is kind of break down the things that you think made the biggest difference. And we were talking before we started recording, there's, I think, maybe like 4 or 5 things that you think were really kind of critical to doing that. Let's start with the first. Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
How's it feel to have that kind of growth?
Good. And I was saying, I keep feeling like it's going to kind of like plateau and then it doesn't. Yeah. So we're really fortunate.
Good for you. That's amazing. Well, you're doing a lot right. Let's talk about some of it. So the first thing that you mentioned was that you've been getting, one of the things that made a big difference in that huge growth was getting more proactive about your lead generation. So you just kind of talk through what that looked like for you.
Totally. So like I said, I've been in Sudbury a long time, working in a lot of different gyms. People know me. It's a very small town. And I never went after, friends who mentioned that they wanted to train or mentioning that their kids might need help. I always just let that lie. So unless they wanted to reach out to me, I was never like bothering friends or bothering neighbors. Mm-hmm. But now if anybody makes an offhand comment like, oh, I've been meaning to call you, or I want to get my son in, I make sure I follow up. Yeah. The other thing I got a lot more aggressive on was lead follow-up. So if we got a prospect through the website, if I emailed or called a couple of times and I didn't hear back, I would also let that lie.
Yep.
And now I'm making many more touch points in those first 2 weeks. And a lot of times it's brought members, it's brought their daughters, et cetera. So the lead generation, but really the lead follow-up.
Yeah, well, I think that's such an important kind of mindset shift for a lot of people listening, Liza, because so many people
Yes.
think about reaching out to friends, family, neighbors, community members as like bothering them.
Yes, I felt like
But
I was bothering
right?
people.
And now you're like, no, well, like this is my business. This is the
Well,
impact I
and
want to
they
make on the
they
world.
asked for help, and they might have
Yeah.
done it in like a really like a friend of mine for years have been like, "Oh, I want to come in. I want to come in. I want to come in." And I just left it alone. And finally, it was like a month after I joined BFU, maybe it was May, and she made another comment, and I was like, "Fine." So I called her up, got her in. She came
Yep.
with a friend, and now she and two of our good friends are like standing members of our small group training. They come 2 or 3 times a week.
That's amazing. That's
So
amazing. For folks who are listening who are like, you know what, I've been the same way. I don't really follow up with people a ton. I'm a little nervous to like talk to friends and families or neighbors about coming to the gym. Like, how do you recommend they get the ball rolling?
I would say just remember that what they're really asking for is help.
Yeah.
So this friend in particular, a lot of the women that we train are menopausal. Like they just feel stuck. They don't feel like they're doing the right things for their body. They just need support. And even that asking for help is like a huge step for them. So if we're not following up, like we're not being a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
So now I take it more as like I'm our whole business is about helping people. Like I feel very fortunate that every day we get to help lots of people.
Yes.
And so when somebody makes a comment, that's where my mind goes is I'm like, how can I help them? If they want to come in, I will just make it easier for them to do that.
Yeah. I love that you say it that way, Liza. I'm going to take it to an extreme here with an example, but I'm going to share it anyway. It's extreme. You know how, nurses, doctors, certified healthcare professionals, they take like an oath that they're like kind of legally responsible to at least offer help when there's someone who's sick or hurt that they come by in their life. And I feel like I wish fitness professionals would take a similar vow or oath, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not legally responsible. People might not want that, right? But the idea is that you come across people all the time who want help with their fitness and wellness and nutrition, and they want community, and to not help them feels like the wrong thing to do. Not that we're going to go around, bugging people and unwillingly adding people's phone numbers and emails to our list if they don't want it, right? We're not trying to be obnoxious, but I think there's something in the middle there that you've highlighted. I think I wish more people did.
Totally. But even if it's like, oh, you made a comment the other day when we were at dinner.
Yes.
Did you really mean it? Because you can come in.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly
like
it.
Low stakes.
Good for you. But I think that's it. I think for our listeners, just having a little bit more proactive outreach to people who do reach out and just being more open to having those conversations when you're out in the world, interacting with people that you know. Those are all leads. Those are all people who can help grow your business. And if you want this, Liza's amazing 60% revenue increase year over year, you got to do those small things add up. Those small things add up. So that's number one. The second thing we were talking about before was that you made a few really great hires that kind of changed the game for you. So can you talk about what those hires were, what mattered about those hires?
Totally. I think I'm really fortunate because only recently did I have to make a hire outside my existing network. So the first person I hired was my friend Jen. And I say friend, we were friendly. We knew each other from another gym. I made a post on Instagram, like looking for fire coaches. She swiped up. She said, "It's me. I'm fire coaches."
Love it.
And that was like a little over 2 years ago. And she is everybody on the DP team is a very kind and caring human. First and foremost, like they care deeply. And you can't teach that. Yeah. So that's one of our values is care and concern. So that's step number one. I just lucked out that I hired another one, a kid that I trained in high school who then wanted to be a trainer. He came on sort of in a mentorship capacity. And then I hired my best friend from growing up. I hired her wife and I kind of tricked her. I'm like, you're a basketball coach and people really like you. And actually she was training at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. A lot of you guys know that name.
Yeah.
And I was like, we do the same thing. I'm like, you have a coaching mindset. Do you want to come on? And I knew she kind of wanted to step back from, she was like club basketball coaching. I knew she wanted to get out of that world. So she's been with us for like a year and a half. And she's the one who really grew. I'm jumping ahead, but our small group, she was sort of the
that's
driving
amazing.
force for that. So,
well, the thing that I love that you're doing here, which I think breaks a kind of a taboo or a myth that people often have, is like, don't work with your friends, don't work with family, don't work with. Like I personally, I haven't found that to be the issue, the case in my world. I've worked with every friend and partner. I met my husband at Mark Fisher Fitness.
Yeah.
Mark met his wife there, right? So
Yeah.
we're the worst example of that.
Totally.
But I think the thing that you're putting your finger on, which why I think it can work so well, is that when you share values like that, when you're people in your life who you really trust and care about, and give a shit, and sharing your values, why not work together?
Yeah. No,
Right?
and we're very open about our values.
Mhm.
And we're a self-selecting community because of that. Like with some stuff about the recent elections and people are like, ooh, don't talk about it. I'm like, it's all we're talking about at DP. Because if you don't feel the same way we feel, you're probably not coming to this gym.
Yeah.
Well, you're not here. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, we
Good for you.
lead that way.
Yeah,
Sure.
good for you. So when you made all these great new hires, what did that unlock for you and the business? What difference did that make?
So it's really hard to grow the business when you're working in the business. That's something we learn. It's repeated over and over again at BFU, and it's so true. Like I still love coaching, and I still am coaching, even still a little bit more than I'd like to be. But every hour that I'm off the floor is that opportunity to grow the business and work on leads and just work on like relationship building in general.
Yeah.
So that's another thing, back to hires, but Jen is in charge of our community events.
Yeah.
So she's like partnering with local businesses, and she is just such a friendly person that that's been really good for us too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, having hires that really fit your culture, who bring some extra skills to the table, like great personality and coaching skills, is amazing. And let's circle back to this because you said that it seems like the big thing it unlocked for you was just more time off your plate. And so I know you've been on this journey of getting off the floor a little bit more. And so you can work
it's a journey.
on the business. Yeah. And so do you want to just talk through what that journey has been like for you over the last year and what kind of difference adding staff has made?
Sure. Over the last year, so like one of the things I love to do is travel, and I get a lot of really lovely opportunities to travel. And I think when I looked up, I think I traveled more than 6 weeks last year.
Wow.
So I was in Mexico and Spain for 2, in Japan for 2, and then a bunch of other smaller trips along the way. And having that team really allowed me to step away. And I'm still checking in with staff. I'm certainly not like turning my phone off for 2 weeks. But Jen and Mo are both full-time, and like knowing that I'm leaving and that Jen and Mo are responsible, and like I'm not worried about anything.
Yeah.
So that's made a huge difference in terms of like my work-life balance and like quality of life. And then just being able to coach less has also, I think, made my coaching better. So when I am coaching, I'm not so strained, and now I'm the backup. Like that's my goal, is to be like when somebody calls out sick, or when somebody else wants to go on vacation, or Jen got married this year, she had a honeymoon, like being able to cover that for her.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that just be the coaching, not like in addition to my regular coaching. Would be the ideal, but it has been a journey.
Yeah, that's great. So I mean, obviously staff made a big difference to getting you off the floor a little bit more. And so now that you're not spending as much time coaching, what have you found yourself replacing that time with?
What have I found that time? I am spending a lot more time working on keeping our standards up. So like we care deeply about our standards. So auditing coaches, auditing programs. We've actually upped the cadence of our one-on-one meetings and our staff meetings. We used to do a once a month meeting for all staff, and now we're at every other week. And one-on-ones, I was doing quarterly one-on-ones, and we just upped the cadence to once a month. And I'm going to try and audit once a month to keep those standards up, because as our team gets bigger, like I keep talking about Jen and Mo, I see Jen and Mo all the time, but I have 2 other part-timers, and we're in the process of hiring, and I just don't see them as much. And when they're there, the studio is much busier. So trying to keep our culture and our standards up as we grow.
That's important.
Yes.
Right? It's just great that you can recognize now that you have to put systems in place now, so that as you keep growing, the standards can stay maintained. So let me just recap what I think we've covered so far.
Okay.
Right. So one thing that made a big difference is being more proactive about lead generation, following up with people more touch points. Be proactive when you're out in the world in conversation. Number 2 is making some great hires, finding some people who really can take things off your plate, who come with great skill set, who match your values. Number 3, which is because of that, you're off the floor more. This is part of you getting off the floor. And when you're off the floor, you can focus more on growing the business, doing some of that lead follow-up, improving the quality of the care and the service, making sure standards are being met. Those are the 3 things I think we've covered so far.
Yes.
The other thing that I know that you said was really important was adding, you used to just do one-on-one training. And I think you've added small groups. Talk about what role did that play in your big revenue increase?
Right now, I think it's accounting for just under 20% of our revenue for January. Let's see. I want to be honest.
Well, that's something you just started not that long ago, and already it's close to 20%.
Yeah. Actually, it was just over 20% for January.
Wow.
So yes, historically we did private training. So either that was one-on-one or it was a small group, but it was you and your friends and your private time. So it was still private training. And what we had was all last year, and I'm talking academic years because that's how we flow. But so from September of 23 until June of 24, we had this group of 6 women who came every Monday and Friday at 9 a.m.
Yep.
And they split the cost, and we had to keep track of that because sometimes somebody was out or traveling or whatever. So the end of the year came, and I talked to my accountability coach, Britt, so much about this, but we turned it into a small group time.
Yep.
And we sold 10 packs and we sold drop-ins. And actually backing it up, March of that year, so March of 24, Coach Mo said, I want to do an intro to small group to get some people in the gym who aren't comfortable. So we had Tuesday, Thursday at noon, and then we added Monday, Friday at 9. So we had 4 class times. And there was the 9 a.m. was good because we had rolled it over. The noon was sometimes there was 2, sometimes there were none. We kept it going because we were patient about it. Now we have 17 class times.
Wow.
And we just in the last 3 weeks, I would say we added 3 more class times. So you would expect our capacity to have gone down in that time. And our class utilization has gone up even though we've been adding class times.
That's amazing.
We're still a little under the BFU standard because we're growing, but we're sitting right around 70%.
But that's amazing.
As we add class time, because we have a few that are waitlisted. Yeah,
considering you've continued to add more, the fact that you've maintained that capacity is fantastic. Yeah, and I think that's the reason why we see so many gyms and studios move to this small group model, is because you can accommodate more people per hour, which means more revenue per hour, cheaper prices for your clients, more pay for your trainers, right? It just can be a really superior model all around, which really opens you up to a whole new avatar who maybe can't afford private training. And
we talk about that all the time, and we're we really have 2 avatars because we still have, still majority of our revenue is from personal training clients. We still have a lot of those people.
Yeah. And in your area, outside of Boston, you probably have people who really can afford that. That makes a lot of sense. And you also are recognizing there's a whole other avatar here who can't, and to offer something that's really high quality, high touch experience for way less is pretty magical.
Yeah, and we have some people who do both. They've been supplementing their personal training so that they can come in more times a week. So it's been really nice. And then it's honestly an easier way to bring in their friends.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. That's awesome. How has your team adjusted to be able to do small groups? I know that's often a big transition for the trainers when they're used to that kind of one-on-one attention, having to give attention to 4, 5, 6 people in a room at a time can be an adjustment. Yeah. How'd you navigate that? Well,
it's funny because one of our coaches who has only ever worked for me and does personal training does not do small group, but not really by design, just because of when we offer and when he works.
Yep.
Like I said, Mo was really the driver of this small group, and she's a coach. She's a basketball coach. She's a volleyball coach.
Yeah.
She comes from the team environment. So
that makes sense.
No problem there. And then Jen actually, she originally was a CrossFit coach, also used to large group training, and we cap at 6.
Yep.
So for them, it's been probably no transition at all. The only thing is we have a small space and we have 2 squat racks. So when we have 6 people in class, but we're very organized. We keep track of everyone's weights. We know what they're going to hit.
Yep.
We set it up ahead of time. Some people know that they might have to take off weight, put back on weight based on who they're with. But a lot of it's the same people who come. Yeah. So they know. They're she's going to go and then I'll take off her weights and I'll put on my weights. And so we've just really gotten it down to science. But yeah, I would say it wasn't a huge transition only because of the people who coach those classes were already kind of came from either a team or a group background.
Totally. I think that's useful for our listeners to hear, is that if they want to switch to a small group, something you want to think about when you're hiring coaches is people who come from a team environment or some sort of group thing. Because I think the most important part of selling small group personal training, in my opinion, is to really anchor it to one-on-one training. Right. In terms of marketing it and selling it, that's why at MFF, we don't call it, classes or, anything
Right.
like that. We call it small group personal training. It's
Mm-hmm.
personal training in a
In
small
a small
group.
group.
And I think when you have, trainers who come from those big group settings, those team settings, they do really well in that.
Yeah.
Even though we really try and treat it like one-on-one training, it very much feels like a team environment.
Totally.
Yeah.
And to your same point, when I'm talking to new prospects, our small group and our one-on-one training sessions are templated exactly the same.
Yeah.
You're getting the same programming, except you're sharing your coach.
Yep. Yep. That's fantastic. All right, cool. So we talked a little bit about, adding small group and the difference that made already over 20% of your revenue, having just started that not that long ago, year and a half ago, maybe.
No, not even. June of 24.
Oh, just June. Not even. So not even
Yeah.
7 months. Yeah. As of recording this, that's amazing. Cool. So let's just talk about the last thing that you said made a big difference was, one is, you had some new accountability working with Business Funicorns, which helped you made some new systems. Can you just talk a little bit about what systems did you put in place? What role did, accountability from Business Funicorns provide for you? Talk through that.
Totally. At the risk of embarrassing myself, I didn't have meeting agendas before BFU.
Mm-hmm.
We would have some sort of like overview, like today we have a staff meeting. We're going to go over demo testing, right?
Sure.
Everyone got assigned like 5 things they're going to demo and yeah.
Yep.
So I might have that, but now we have like literally 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20.
Yep. A timed agenda.
We love an agenda. We love rating our meetings.
Great.
And it allows so much for like feedback, which I didn't talk about with my hires, but like everyone on the team takes feedback really well. But they take feedback really well because it's also like a regular part of our practice.
Yep.
And the same to be true, like you were talking about working with friends. Like I think one of the things that's especially important when you're working with friends, but I mean working with anyone at all, is like we always say clear is kind. Yes. Like that's a motto at DP. Is so it's like if you know what the expectations are, then we know if you're hitting them or not. So and it's the same reason we're adding meeting cadences for our one-on-one, but like we regularly give feedback and I regularly take feedback. So the meeting agendas, all of our standard operating procedures have been really, really helpful because we also have we have a really strong internship program, which is like one of my favorite things. Like right now we have a woman who's in her 2nd semester as a senior in college, getting college credit for coming. We're associated with a bunch of local universities, but then we also have, we call them interns, but they're like high school and college kids who help us with admin when they're home from break.
Great.
I had a girl who'd never worked for us before, but she'd trained with us for a really long time. And she was able to slide in, and her semester started really late. So she took over after our normal college intern had left for the winter break. But because we have SOPs out the wazoo and Loom tutorials that our last intern had made, like she was able to slide right in with very, very little guidance from me. Because when we first had interns, I was like, it's so much work for me to tell you what to do because I'm not organized enough. So even that little bit of organization, she's like, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, well, there's an SOP, find it on the index. And she's like, oh, okay. Reads it, does it. I'll check it, but she doesn't need the same hand holding because we have standards for everything.
Yeah. Oh, Liza, I can't tell you how happy it makes my heart. It's the reason we do it. It's the reason we do what we do here at BFU is right. So that you can put systems in place that make your life easier.
I screenshot from your weekly training a couple weeks ago because now we're doing more one-on-one. So I screenshot the 30-minute agenda.
Great.
Copied it into Google Docs.
Good.
Made 5 copies of it. Dated everybody. We're good to go.
That's fantastic. Good for you. I think, having those systems in place, like I said, just makes the business all more scalable, takes things off your plate, means you don't have to constantly be repeating yourself, makes it clear what you expect from everyone, which is, to your point, the kindest thing you can do.
Kindness, and people don't mean to do a bad job.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, they're doing a bad job because they don't have the skills or they're they were unclear on what you asked for, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's well said. You also mentioned that that having some accountability from BFU has been useful. Can you just say what's useful about that for you?
I'm trying to think about one that I what hadn't been doing. Actually, I feel like the audits were sitting on there for a while because I just wasn't scheduling them, and the one-on-ones. But I get my text from Britt every week. What are you working on?
Yeah,
I write it down. She follows up with me, and then so. Even the things that like I knew, and I am a pretty organized person, like previously.
Sure.
But there are those things that stay on your to-do list and they just keep
100%.
getting kicked down.
Yes. And sometimes we have no idea why. We can't consciously understand why we're not getting that thing done. Sometimes it's clear, but sometimes we just don't know. So having that external force, someone like a business coach outside of your own world to say, what'd you do, Liza? Is it done? Is it not done? Why not?
Is it done? And she'll ask me like, what's getting in your way?
Yeah.
Or do you need help? Or so all of those little things, because sometimes it's like, nah, I'm just being a brat and I don't really want to do it. And if I just sat down for 5 minutes, I would just get it off my list.
Yes.
So yes, all of the systems, the accountability that BFU, and I will say, I had a call with BFU, I think 2 years before I joined, and I didn't have any staff.
Oh, right.
And I ended up not joining.
Yep.
And that was the right choice for me then, because the BFU provides so much that if you don't have a staff that is coaching for you, like you can't take advantage of every possible nook and cranny. There is so much on there.
Yep.
But now that I have a team, like obviously we're doing really well.
You're crushing it. Yeah. And I think since we talked to you those 2 years ago, we now don't even let people join if they don't have at least one member on their team.
Which makes perfect sense. You can't do it.
Right? It's just like, and not that there's anything wrong with going solo. Some people like being solopreneur and it works for them. But so much of the value, I think you're right, that a group like us provides, the coaches, the whole coaching team provides, is how to manage your people and how to grow and scale, which means you need more people. And so good. I'm glad that's been useful for you. And I'm glad, Coach Brittany has been helping hold you accountable. She's
my girl. Yeah. We love her.
Yeah. So let me see if I can recap the things we covered here. So things that made a big difference in you achieving 60% revenue increase were being more proactive at lead generation, following them with more often with more people, making some good hires, finding the right people for the right seats that fit your values, getting off the floor more, getting yourself some time to work on the business instead of in the business. Adding small group helped you really scale to reach a new avatar at a new price point. And building systems in the business allowed you to do more with less stress and less time to keep your team accountable, which is huge. And obviously having accountability from us, I think, has helped with that, getting those systems built. Did I miss anything?
No, and what we're working on in 2025 is Coach Mo is in charge of marketing. She's been following all the BFU marketing calendar stuff. We already ran one promotion that got us 6 new members in the beginning of January.
Great.
So that's our next goal.
Fantastic.
So we're going to tackle in the future to keep this lead generation rolling.
Keep it rolling, Liza. I can't wait to have you back on the podcast another 6 to 8 months and see where you're going. Because you're really built a rocket ship here, my friend, and I hope it just continues for as long as you want it to keep continuing.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for being on the podcast. It was such a great conversation. Thanks for being so open about your business and sharing all your lessons learned. So thank you for that, dear listeners. I hope you were taking notes. And listeners, final reminder, if you want to book one of our free, no strings attached brainstorm calls, click the link down below in the show notes. Let us know you want to join us and we'll hop on a call and talk about your business and see if you can't get some of the amazing success Liza's been enjoying. So thanks again, Liza, and everyone. I'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Michael.